Hello, my name is Frances Fox, and I'm a trained remote viewer. I'm also trained in interspecies communication. The interspecies communication training I got in some mountain in northern India. People that weren't like nor the kind of Indians that we're used to from India. They look like primitive tribes. And when I was taken there and left with them when I was 10, um, I did a lot of crying. And what they did was they filled me with mud. They put mud on my face, on my hair, on my arms. And it was very comforting because I looked like them because they never bathed. They were indigenous, very connected to the land. And they said that they were ETs. Anyway, they trained me in interspecies communication, but I knew how to communicate with animals before then. I had worked with dolphins with the military. So, just to give you a little bit of background so you can understand that I have more sources for information than most people. And at this time, when we're becoming very much multidimensional and multiplanetary, we really need to widen our lens and have that extra information. You can't go from being a person or a government that only believes in the physical dimension and laws and negotiating over a table or over the phone, whatever, and actually think you're going to be able to keep up with the aliens. You're not, you can't. You need to know that there's a part of you in other dimensions that can communicate with them. It's called your spirit. And you think that that spirit only pops up when your physical body dies. It doesn't. It pops up for the last time when your physical body dies, but it is kind of hanging around you since conception. But anyway, let's go on to the topic of the day, which is rooting your intentions. And I'm going to take a different, interesting angle to this, having to do with the killing and eating of animals that are pets. And what is that all about? It's horrifying to us. And for me, it's horrifying because I read for a lot of people the black magic that's been done to them. And I wouldn't know what percentage it would be, but I would say significant amount, number, or pieces of that black magic. We don't even have the right language. Are set in place with a ritual that includes killing animals. They are actually rituals that include killing people. And whether you believe it or not, a couple of young men were killed to try to keep my Mantrista movement down with a ritual. And it wasn't just me that saw it. So, but what is that all about? We have to go all the way back to the fact that since the planet started, there have been human sacrifices and sacrifices of animals, including in the Bible. Well, okay, what's that all about? Being mean to animals? Not liking pets? No, it has to do with ETs. Oh, how can that be? I'll tell you. I didn't believe it either. Around 2012, when I was in love with the Mayans, as we all were around 2012, I said to my masters, and I said to the dolphins, okay, I love the Mayans, but the truth of the matter is, I'm having a real hard time dealing with the fact that they had human sacrifices. I mean, I can't get over that. So please explain how we should be honoring the Mayans and looking up to them and looking for what it is that they left for us to help us in this time now. And they killed people. The dolphins explained to me, and those articles are on my website, and I didn't put them up for like 10 years after I got them because I thought it would upset a lot of people. As I explained in another chat podcast, we have ETs that want things from us human beings. And one of the main things that they want is a high volume of emotions, because that is a gasoline for them that they use. And in Hinduism, they call emotions, which are astral particles, they call it a force, astral force. In Star Wars, they say, may the force be with you. They're talking about a force of emotions, which is your spirit body. So when they say, may the force be with you, they're asking you to integrate with your spirit body. Don't wait until the day you die physically, because then you can't integrate. Your physical body is gone. when you have your spirit, emotional body integrated with your physical, that's when you have the force being with you and you're much stronger. Okay, so the ETs live off of those particles of emotions. Well, I don't actually know what they do with them. I do know that they want them and that they stimulate wars and discord in order to stimulate a lot of negative emotions, which in some way they siphon off. Okay, so when it comes to human sacrifices, it is a sacrifice to the ETs. It's what the ETs are asking for in exchange for something. So I'll tell you the story that I'm the most intimate with that's personal. Okay. Several years ago, when I was hot on the trail of finding what it was that the Mayans wanted us today to know so that this transition into another cycle would be easier, I ran into information from a Mayan city called El Mirador in northern Guatemala. Very interesting that that Mayan city is next to other Mayan cities in northern Guatemala. They're megalopolis, which means they're like huge, each of the cities. And the scientists just found them relatively recently. I don't know, 40, 50 years ago. It could be a little bit longer than that. I'm very bad at timing, as are most psychics. And they didn't understand how it is that these megalopolis sized cities, several of them, could be there and nobody had seen them. And last December, there was another team that went there. Oh, they were there, and then the people disappeared. Okay, so where did they go, and why couldn't we see these cities? It's like they were invisible. When I checked, what I saw was that the Mayans remembered when the Spaniards came and destroyed all of their knowledge and burned the libraries and however it was that they had their information. And the Mayans knew this, and they wanted to ensure that that information would be available to us today, now, in this change of a cycle. And what they did was that they did a ritual, and they sacrificed to the gods, which are ETs, 17 Mayan souls, the best souls that they had. When that would happen, those Mayans that would die considered it an honor, even though I have to tell you, there's a lot of emotion involved that created issues that these reincarnated souls today still have with their mothers, with themselves, the trauma. So it wasn't just, oh, I'm going to die for my country. No, for the Mayan culture, I'm fine with this. There was emotion. And the ETs insisted that there be a volume of emotions. The deaths had to be very dramatic and create a lot of emotions, which they did. But what was that ritual about? What was it for? Talking about rooting intentions. How god awful. They killed 17 young people. 4 or 5 of them, I know them, reincarnated today. That's another story. Rooting intention. Their intention was to preserve this information. And in order to do this, they had to do a ritual and ask for off planet help and give the off planet beings what it is that they wanted, which was human sacrifices. And they did it. And it was so good because the ritual intention, rooting intentions, was to hide this information until today, which would have been, I think, 40 or 50 years ago. And it's fascinating because the scientists that go there obviously don't know this. So they're going there and they're looking, well, where did they go? How did they die? The last conclusion, the last group of scientists in December came back and said, there was no drought. We don't have an explanation of why it is that they just simply disappeared. Well, they slipped into other dimensions and they evolved. But we're talking now about what it is that they left us. So these 17 souls that were sacrificed, how god awful, but the intention was to help us today. Rooting intention. These rituals are to root intentions. I'm not suggesting, obviously, that we do this today. I can't stand it. I love my pets. I don't like the religion of Santeria, which is supposedly a religion, because they do this. So I am not in agreement with this. But I do see what it is that they were trying to accomplish, which was to root very deeply the intention to hide these cities and to hide this information. Now, let's talk about trying to retrieve that information. I'm still running into the intention of the ritual. I actually sent somebody down to the Mayan site in El Mirador, and it was a mess. Now, I suspect that I was also a mess and was not able to see the things effectively because of that ritual. And the souls that I, not coincidentally, have gathered around me in terms of my work still have reactive traumas to that particular way that they died at that time. And yet they're here today working with me, trying to get that information that the Mayans left. So, rooting intentions. When you see things happening that you think are god awful, at some level, those humans are rooting an intention that they are probably not in contact with and not in control of. The animal sacrifices are to create, let's move away from the Mayan example. The animal sacrifices are to create that emotional reaction and the blood and the gore and the animals in pain and agony, because that's what the ETs are requiring. Now, should we be able to do this another way? I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure you should be able to do it just pure intention. But very obviously, all the big civilizations that we think are such a big deal, they all did this. So there's a lot more there than we would like to accept. But again, it has to do with complying with the requisites of the aliens, which you don't even believe in order to get the intention that we want anchored and rooted. So I put it out there. I'm sure you don't believe it, and that's okay. When I asked about this, it's because I didn't understand how a culture as evolved as the Mayans could have possibly done this as a routine part of their lives. According to what I was told by my masters, it was over 20% of their population that they had to sacrifice in a very dramatic and agonizing way in order for the ETs, by the way, to allow the Mayans to continue to explore human consciousness and achieve the levels of enlightenment that they did. And what did they achieve ultimately, the Mayans? They are the only civilization on planet Earth that transitioned into other dimensions in a state of evolution. No other culture has done that. The Atlanteans, we already know how it ended, the Great Flood. We don't know what happened to the Egyptians, but it was not beautiful. And the scientists, this is supposed to be the big question mark in archaeology. What happened to the Mayans? They slipped into, some people call it the fifth dimension. I don't really know what the numbers would correspond, but they slipped into a dimension to where they didn't need to return and reincarnate on planet Earth. They finished. But in order to do that, there was a negotiating process. Now, this makes me think a little bit about what's going on today with all of the violence that we see on television and that we see between people. Are there people behind the scenes that know that in order for many of us to get to a certain place, there has to be this level of human anguish and agony and releasing of negative astral particles? I don't know. And I'm not going to answer that here. But let's go back to what's happening today in the United States with the killing and eating of pets. That has been traditional, as I said in the beginning, in all the cultures that we've studied. It is not a part of this culture in this country. It is horrifying. I don't support it. I don't like it. I want it to stop. But when you get two cultures clashing or two cultures coming together, when you bring in that volume of people from countries that have different belief systems and different habits, and you put them here in this kind of pristine culture where we really don't have a lot of power in the other dimensions. We actually have practically no power in the other dimensions, and they do. They know how to do magic. Then you get the stuff that's happening in the news. We're horrified. We think these people are animals. And yet, in the Catholic Church, the ritual, you drink the blood of Christ and you eat the body of Christ. If that's not cannibalism, I don't know what is. And yet we don't question it. What is going on? What is that with our heads? Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Okay, that's okay. Then please don't look at other people that actually do it physically. So you can say, well, but we don't do that physically. Actually, you did. Christ was sacrificed on the cross. So don't say that you don't do it. We did it as a people. Why am I saying this? To put it in your face that you need to look at things with a wider lens or you're going to get left behind. And I don't mean left behind on the planet with everybody else going to someplace more beautiful. You're going to get left behind in terms of being able to understand what's going on and being able to make better choices because you have more information. So this brings us back to intention, which is the subject of my darn book that I haven't been able to get out to you. It's called From Victim to Master. And it has to do with learning how to create magic in the other dimensions, which means you have to accept that you have pieces of, then you need to learn to handle those pieces, and then you need to just wrap your head around the fact that whatever it is that happens on the physical dimension, it first was intended and created in other dimensions and then manifested on the physical. So rituals, human sacrifices, animal sacrifices, I'm not saying that we should accept it. I don't like it. I don't want it. But maybe it's in our face for us to understand what it was about in the other cultures that we revere, such as the Egyptians, and what can we learn from that? We're already using it in the Catholic Church. What do you mean, what can we learn from that? Why is that part of the ritual of the Catholic Church? I don't know. But maybe we need to ask more, and maybe people need to be more conscious and not just repeat prayers, but actually know what they're repeating. And here we go back to Buddhism, which is not a religion. It's the only people that I know that every single prayer of theirs also prays to ETs or for ETs or to subdue ETs. They take into consideration the aliens. Every single prayer and initiation, what do they call them? Initiation ceremonies, nobody questions. Nobody says, why are we, there are no aliens. Why are we praying for the aliens or trying to adjust why? Nobody asks any questions. So when you guys talk about people being asleep, we've been asleep for a long time and we need to wake up, and we're waking up in a very loud and difficult way. And I hope I'm contributing something to you opening your lens and taking in things and not judging. The Haitians that are coming over here and are killing animals and eating them, and I have no doubt that that's true, whether whatever it is that are putting on the news, that particular incident actually happened, believe me, behind the scenes it's happening. It's part of their culture. How can we judge? We do. I don't like it. I don't want to see it. I don't want it here. And there we go with the whole thing with being in the apocalypse. You have everything is getting thrown in together, and we need to examine everything. Let's go back to rooting your intentions. And let's go back to the music from yesterday, which, as you know, caused a bit of a fist fight between me and Mateo Cuarón. We didn't have a fist fight. He's too elegant for that. And I'm too old for that. But I was not happy because nobody can sleep with that music. No, you can't sleep with that music, but you can sure beat up on those spirits that are inside you with that music, and we're going to do that now. So we're going to the music, which is already up on Shopify, Spotify, and Apple. In our page, News from Other Dimensions, look up Francis Fox. I'm a little confused as to what the actual page is because I have News from Other Dimensions and Noticias de Otras Dimensiones. So I'll get it to you tomorrow, which page, but it's up there under Francis Fox. It was, Mateo put it up yesterday. No, we're not fighting about that particular composition because we both listened to it together coincidentally, and we both had an incredible reaction in terms of things moving inside of our bodies, which are spirits. Yes, widen your lens. You have spirits inside your body. Oh my God, who do I go to? An exorcist? Don't go to an exorcist. When they release spirits, it's very dramatic. It's very ugly. You could even vomit. Ayahuasca. Yes, vomit your heart out. You don't need to do that. You can simply use our mantrista music composed by Mateo Cuaron, petitioned by me with requirements that he fulfills incredibly well, and you can take care of those spirits. So don't get all upset about them. And do not go for an exorcism because there is no need for it to be that dramatic. I used to, every full moon, I gave events that were paid, and you could come and we would do exorcisms. And it was so quiet and so elegant, and people were releasing spirits. They could see them, and I could see them being released. And I asked, why is this so elegant and so easy and so non-violent, these exorcisms? And when the Catholic Church does them or other people do them, it's wild. Well, I found out why. Because we work at the level of intention, and the intention was to release those spirits. At that level, you don't have the spirit astral body with all the emotions. When the Catholic Church does exorcisms, they deal with the spirit, and they have a confrontive battle with the spirit, and it gets ugly. You don't have to do that. You have to go deeper, which is what I'm teaching you. You go deeper to where reality is created, which is intention. So with these frequencies in this particular composition called rooting in English and called, I forget what the name is in Spanish, you're going to release spirits. But first you're going to feel them. The frequency tries to go through you, and then it hits something. And what it's hitting is a congestion of negative emotions or a spirit. And you just keep going. If anything, if you can reach that part of your body, let's say you feel it here, you can do tapping. Just doing the tapping, see the way I'm breathing more deeply? I have a lot of spirits here. They do not want me to communicate with you. So we're going to do that now. Rooting intention. So let's go. Okay. Let's do this. I think a lot of people are afraid today. No, I think a lot of people are afraid, but I think today after the debate, there was an augmentation of fear. We're getting closer. So this is the mantra we're going to do. It's a purification mantra. Even though I'm afraid. Oh, no. No, I just want the even though I'm afraid. Even though I am afraid. Give me a second. And we will do the rooting music. Come on. Okay, this is the mantra. You repeat it in silence. You expel the breath through your mouth. Even though I'm afraid, I love and accept myself. That's called the Fox purification mantra. And the other one is the intention mantra. And I'm going to go ahead and put the music, and we're going to do it for 10 minutes. And you pay attention to where you're feeling things. You might want to have a piece of paper with you, or remember and then sketch your body and then put arrows in the places that this particular music started to stimulate. Okay? If you feel like little tingly, or you feel like ants are crawling on your skin in your body, those are spirits that you woke up that now are no longer sleeping inside of you, but know that something's going on and they might be kicked out. If you feel like stabbing, if you feel like pinching, um, those are spirits. If you start to yawn, it's a really good sight that this mantra is working, and it opens up secret channels in the back of your heart chakra. If you start to release tears from your eyes, it also means that the mantra is really working. The yawning is really good. Okay, so we're going to do 10 minutes of this new composition, and you are going to now do an auto analysis and auto diagnosis. Did you see how the colors around me are great right now? Because I feel good, because I think maybe you can get this. Maybe you can get this and understand, oh my God, I do feel something there. And yeah, I do have problems with a tooth in that area, but that side of my face is different. Da, 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 da. Okay, here we go. And there are no images. We haven't had the time to make it up into a video. It's just an audio. So you'll be looking at my face half the time. I think this is it. Okay, we did 9.5 minutes. I had some memories get released from my tissues. Now, this part, the throat chakra, ears, nose, mouth, neck, um, thymus, is connected to your second chakra, which is your sexual chakra. So, what I was releasing were some sexual trauma memories because of the stimulation of my throat chakra with the tapping and the music. And the reason I went to my throat chakra and my chin was because that's where I could feel the tightness. So I hope it was effective for you also. It is on Spotify and iTunes or Apple, whatever the name of that platform is. And you should take advantage of it. Actually, you should be in a process, a continuous process of purification, because our enemies in the other dimensions are able to get to us through portals that are opened because of traumas. Portals are also open when you have surgery and they cut your etheric body, which is your Higgs field. It's shaped just like your physical body. So we have lots of traumas and we have lots of portals, and there's lots of opportunities for spirits to come in, and there are lots of spirits and different kinds. So to be in a state of constant purification is what needs to happen, not just like when you start a religious ceremony or you want to do a meditation. You should be doing it 24 hours a day. And that is why we came up with this Mantrista music, which is sensory therapy, not just audio with sound, but also with images. And I would say a significant number of my followers, and we're thousands of people at this point, sleep all night with these compositions. And it works. Everybody in the house sleeps better, including the pets. And we're right now making up a list of which of the compositions you need to use for which type of issue you could have. Like this particular music, which I requested, 10 hours long, so that you could sleep with it. Don't do that. That was a great request, but don't do that. And you know why? Because it was for the root chakra, and it is for the root chakra, for rooting. But in the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, what does it say about the root chakra? It says that if your consciousness is awake in your root chakra, you're in the now, what Eric Tolle teaches us. You're not disassociated. Evil can't come in. So you have to be really associated. All of your bodies have to be aligned. Your spirit body, which is your emotional body, has to be aligned. And honestly, at night, you need to relax a little bit more, and that composition doesn't let you do that. So I was asking for something wonderful, but it doesn't work for what I wanted, but it surely does work for teasing up and out those spirits so that you can have a graceful exorcism. An exorcism is when you release a spirit. And a lot of times you will feel like, whew, like something just left. A lot of my followers who have now a lot of training in their third eye, whatever, they can actually see the spirit leaving. It's not traumatic once you realize how many spirits we have. Everything that is not perfect in you has a spirit attached. And as I always point out on the wrinkles I have here, there are spirits attached here. And when we use that music, my upper lip, I can feel it. The music is pushing those spirits, and I have not finished clearing it. Some traumas are very, very deep, and they take a lot of work and a lot of self-acceptance. Oh, yes, that did happen. Oh, yes, I did that. So anyway, we're going to say goodbye now, and we will see you again. So root your intentions in whichever way that you do. And this rooting is not for sleeping, but it is an easy way to get to beings that are invading you. And they've been around forever, since the beginning of time. Okay? It's a very graceful and elegant way